All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the 5 Elements to School Auction Success, a webinar presented to you by two of the leading providers of quality solutions to K through 12 schools, SchoolAuction.net and Dimeline. It's 2 p.m. here, right outside Washington, D.C. at the Dimeline offices. I'm David Krimmel, head of partnerships here at Dimeline, and joining me from beautiful Portland, Oregon is Roger Devine, president and founder of SchoolAuction.net. Good afternoon, Roger, and thanks for joining us.
Hi, David. Great to be here.
All right. So I know a lot of you have asked questions, and we'll try to cover them during the webinar. We've allotted time for questions and answers at the end of the session. So if you submitted a question and don't hear anything during the webinar, make sure you stay until the end. Here we go. Should a question come up anytime during the presentation, feel free to type your question in the question box located on the right side of your GoToMeeting panel. We have about 75 schools on today's webinar, and so we've muted your phone so there are no distractions. So for Dimeline, so for those of you who don't know, Dimeline is the leading provider of payment services and technology to schools across the country, and we've been solely dedicated to schools for 12 years, processing over $2 billion in payments. Just last month, we are proud to say that we now work with over 1,000 schools across the U.S. To share a little more about what we do, Dimeline takes a campus-wide approach to streamlining online payment acceptance. Since we are exclusively focused on schools, our solutions are designed with you in mind and constantly being upgraded based on your feedback and ever-evolving needs. Our digital payment solutions help you simplify, streamline, and accelerate payments across the campus and accept digital payments for tuition, online fundraising, summer programs, and more. Our payment processing also integrates with the existing vendors you already have in place, especially our friends over there at SchoolAuction.net. And we're here to help you come up with the most cost-effective solutions for your school. We have been fortunate enough to be a valued partner of SchoolAuction.net for many years and have made auctions simple for dozens of schools together over the years. One of the reasons that we make such a good team is that we are both devoted to providing a superior experience to schools. Together, SchoolAuction.net and Dimeline present the only complete auction fundraising solution designed for schools. So on to the payment side of the solution. We've gathered feedback from auction chairs and development teams over the years on the ideal structure of a merchant account. Earlier this year, we released our new auction merchant accounts, which is the only payments account designed for school auctions anywhere in the marketplace, and it allows you to save time and money so you can maximize incoming funds. The structure has no monthly fees or setup costs, a simple flat rate that leverages your nonprofit status, which qualifies you for the lower charitable rates. You have the option to set up the account as seasonal, meaning you only have to worry about the account in the months in which you accept payments, and there are no fees for activating and deactivating your account. We deposit the funds into your account on a daily basis, and our payment gateway has very robust reporting tools. The feedback on these accounts have been so great, and so we'll provide a link at the end of the session and through the various follow-up emails so you can get more information if you'd like. Lastly, we're running a promotion right now, and we'll discuss this later in more detail, but schools who add a Dimeline merchant account to a new or existing subscription of SchoolAuction.net would be eligible for 6 free months of auction software. More to come on that later. So today, Roger is going to go through some of the key elements to running a successful auction. Our goal is to prepare you so you and your school can take advantage of this key time of year for auctions and giving. Just to give you a little insight on the seasonality of online giving, this page makes the case that the time to act is right now, not just for auctions, but also online giving. December is a well-known #1 month for donations across all sectors, but February is a close second. When you add November and January to the mix, it adds up to 50% of your annual donations in a 4-month span. Pair a SchoolAuction.net auction with online giving forms provided by Dimeline, you could really make an impact for your school over the next 6 months. Okay, more than enough about us. I'm going to go and hand it over to Roger, the SchoolAuction.net expert, to teach us about the 5 key elements to auction success. Take it away.
Okay, thank you, David. I appreciate that. Well, I want to say welcome to everybody who is here. I recognize some of the names in the attendee list. That was really heartening to see. Happy to take you through this. What we're going to be concentrating on for the next half an hour or so is our elements that are they're not necessarily related to software. They're not necessarily related to payment processing, although those two things plug into this. But these are elements on how to run a successful auction. And there are a handful of key things that we want to go over here. So, David, it appears that I do not yet have control over the keyboard. Can you help me with that? There we go.
How about now?
Okay, fantastic.
All right.
So, yep, looks like I've got control now. These are the 5 steps we're going to be going over here as we move through the discussion. Many of the things that we're going to be covering in here are also covered in an ebook that I'll be happy to send you after this presentation is over. Some of you may already have seen some of what's going on here, but promise I'm going to try my best to add in some new stuff as well. Okay, let's just get started here. The first thing that we're going to, I'm going to advise you to do when you are starting to work on your auction is to make a plan for the auction itself, a fundraising plan for the auction. And David, it looks like I'm still having problems here. Can you advance the next slide? Okay, so a fundraising auction is an event where your guests are coming. They intend to spend money when they are there. They intend to support your school or your booster club or your group, your PTA, what have you. And your job is to find ways to make it easy for them to spend money. Make it easy and make it fun and make it, give them a method for spending money that's going to fit with what they most want to do here. And for every one of your guests, the mix is going to be slightly different on the things that appeal to them. But I have come up with an analogy here saying that if you organize your fundraising auction like a department store, it's just a very specialized department store that's only open for 6 hours a year or so, your guests can move around between the different departments and they can spend money in their own mix on this. We're going to go through the various departments in just a second here. This is just a list of the ones that we are going to cover. But the idea is that every guest is going to spend a little bit of money at a number of these things, and it's going to add up to the mental budget that they bring into the event with if you've designed this all correctly. Along with planning out the different areas of your event, you're going to want to do some projections on that as well. Okay, so let's get started going through these. We're going to start with the silent auction. Presumably many of you, most of you, probably all of you know what a silent auction is. You're going to put out paper bid sheets out in the room. Possibly you're going to use mobile bidding for this, but let's stick with the model of paper bid sheets for right now to explain it. Guests are going to walk around between the items, write down bids sequentially on the bid sheets so that when you call time, whoever's the last person who's put down a high bid on the sheet wins the item. They generally take place over a period of between 15 minutes to 45 minutes for a given set of items. The number one tip I've got for you when it comes to planning out your silent auction is that it's probably too big. Whatever you're currently thinking, whatever you're currently planning, whatever you did last year, there's probably too many items in it. At least from my point of view. There are lots of schools that like to run maxi silent auctions that have got, a couple hundred items out on the tables. I'll tell you that my most common advice is to scale it back, bring it back, get fewer total items out there. And there's a couple of reasons why I would say this. I know that it seems possibly counterintuitive. You want to raise more money, more items should equal more money. Well, it's not quite as tight a relationship as that. The thing that is going to generate the money is not really the number of items you have out there, but the number of bids you're receiving. And you can receive just as many bids on a smaller number of items as long as there is more competition. Competition is the thing I really, really want you to think about when you're putting out your silent auction. Here's the thing about silent auctions. They're kind of sexy. They're the centerpiece of the first, hour and a half, 2 hours of your event. They take up a lot of room. People like silent auctions. People who come to these events really like participating in silent auctions. They're fun. And so when a guest walks into your event and they see that there's a silent auction out there, they're going to go try to win something. My advice is don't have something for everyone. Don't let everybody go home with something from your silent auction, because this is going to increase the competition. This is going to increase the competitive bidding. In order for you to really justify the work that it takes to procure the items for your silent auction, you want to sell them for the 7th or 8th bid on the bid sheet, if not 9th, 10th, or 12th. If you're selling them for the 1st or 2nd bid, really it's a disappointing return on that acquisition that you've made. So make your guests compete by having fewer items there. Flip side to this is that, I've just mentioned procurement and the return on your effort. There's no doubt about the fact, and I'm sure you've all already confronted this, that acquiring items for your silent auction is a big task. And it is a task that, if you're lucky, you'll find a few people within your community who don't mind going and asking for stuff, who, that kind of integrates with who they are as people, that it's easy for them. Far more often, it's something where you have to kind of twist somebody's arm to do it, and they do it a little reluctantly. It's a burnout job for a lot of people. So my hope is that you scale back your silent auction procurement. You have things that are out there. You have good, fun things, but you don't have something for everyone in the silent auction. Now, I am going to talk to you a little bit later. The whole point of the department store model is that we do want to have some way for everybody to spend all of the money that they bring with them. But all I'm saying here is it doesn't all have to be in the silent auction. We can scale back the silent auction so that it works. You get competition. You get competitive bidding. Okay, so what if you've got a lot of items already and you're listening to this and thinking, well, maybe that makes sense, but I've got a few hundred things already procured here. What am I going to do with these? Well, there's a couple of tips that I would have for you. Gift certificates, gift cards, plain Jane $25 gift card to a local restaurant, move that to what I call a pick board. Okay, and this is something that people will participate in during the same time they're participating in the silent auction. But I would actually call these a separate department. A pick board is a board where you put up a bunch of fixed price items, items with a very clear value. A $25 gift certificate clearly is worth $25. And you say the first person that'll come along and give me face value for this can just take it. So you're putting them up, and there's no competitive bidding on those items. You may have 50 or 60 of them up on a board. They tend to go really rapidly. And you're just making sure that you're getting face value for all of those donations. I don't count those in my silent auction item count. I move them out. It's a different thing. It's a different psychology for the buyer. They're not in there competing, etc. David, I think maybe we're getting a little feedback on your end.
Sorry about that.
See if I can mute David here.
Should be going right now.
Okay, fantastic, much better. The other thing you can do with excess items, things that you think may not necessarily be the most appealing or sexy things in your silent auction, move some of them to an auxiliary event. And my favorite auxiliary event would be an online auction. Do these as a cleanup 3 or 4 weeks after your main event. Don't do them ahead of time, because online auctions that happen before your gala event give your guests a potential excuse to not attend, and you really want them to attend. But do it a few weeks afterwards, clean up some of those extra items. Okay, so now the money question here. How many items am I recommending? Well, okay, let me put out a bold request here. How about 30% of the number of bid numbers in the room? So let's say you've got 200 guests. We'll make the math easy. 200 guests, if couples are sharing a bid number, is somewhere around 150 bid numbers. Let's go with a third of that and say put out 50 silent auction lots. Have 150 bid numbers competing for 50 silent auction lots. I think that's a pretty decent, rational number. It's not going to kill you to procure 50 silent auction packages. If you put out 150 or if you put out 200, then I can guarantee you're going to get disappointing final bids on a whole lot of those. Sometimes it takes a couple of years to get you to a 30% figure. You've got a culture where people like having lots of items there. Maybe you go down to 70% your first year, 50% your second year, 33% your third year. It's a guideline. It's not a requirement, but that's my suggestion there. All right, so I'm going to move along here to the live auction as our second department that we are going to explore. The idea with a live auction is that your guests are sitting down, they are paying attention to somebody who is up at the front of the room, MC, auctioneer, etc., who is auctioning off higher value items, generally focused more on experiences, generally focused more on things that you cannot purchase outside of the event. Here are some tips that I have culled from my relationships with many, many, many benefit auctioneers. Okay, and these first three bullets on this slide all are basically focused on the same idea, which is you don't have much time for the live auction. You are asking people, they've probably eaten, you probably serve them dessert right as you're starting the live auction. They're sitting there, they've got friends there, and you don't have the rest of the night to get this done. They're going to sit quietly and they're going to participate for a certain amount of time, and then they're going to just start, moving around in their chair restlessly, thinking about doing something else, And one of the phrases that an auctioneer has told me is that I can only sell for as long as their butts are going to endure it. So be mindful of that. Be mindful of the people sitting out there in the audience. The auctioneers I know say that there is essentially a 1-hour period where you have got maximum fundraising potential during the evening. They call it the magic hour, and it is between 8 p.m. and 9 p.m. And they're very specific about this. And they say that, between 8 and 9, your guests are loosened up. They've had a couple of drinks. If you serve alcohol at your event. And they're feeling okay, but they're not yet. They haven't yet had 9 or 10 drinks, and they haven't yet run out of patience with your event. They're still in a good, generous mood between 8 p.m. and 9 p.m. After 9 p.m., you start losing their attention. Auctioneers like to take about 3 minutes to sell a particular item, and they want about 6 minutes for your paddle raise, which we'll get to in just a second. So, you kind of do the math out and you think, well, it's going to be somewhere between, 15, maybe 17 items max that you can cover during your live auction. When I'm chairing an auction, I don't push it much past 12 items. I'm happy if I get to 10 or 12. That's fine. That gives us a little bit more time during that magic hour to make sure we get it all in. The other thing you'll notice is that even within the magic hour, there is a bell curve that comes with the excitement and the fundraising potential. You got to have a little bit of a warm-up. Your first item or two are not going to be your best money makers. They're not going to have the most competitive bidding. After your warm-up, things start getting better right away. You're going to have a peak right around 8:25, 8:30, and then you start getting a little bit of diminishing returns on those last few items. So you're going to want to structure your live auction understanding this psychology. For schools, I'm going to tell you the main thing that you should have in your live auction are going to be experiences. There's a question that had come in about procuring vacations. Vacations are certainly a lovely type of experience to have in your live auction, but so are other things like principal for a day or the ability to have lunch with the mayor, etc. And then student art. Student art, classroom projects, these are perennials for the live auction and for good reasons. And I will confess, as the person who bought my son's class project every year between the time he was in kindergarten and the time he was in 5th grade, actually I didn't buy them, his mother did, but we have them all here in our house, and I can tell you they are irresistible to many parents, and people spend wildly out of proportion for what the declared fair market value might be on these things because your kids did them. Last tip with regards to live auctions, it makes a huge difference who is conducting the auction. Please, please, please resist the temptation to be penny wise and pound foolish. Please do not ask a volunteer or a parent from the school to be your auctioneer. If you do, you're leaving money on the table. You want to hire a professional, and preferably someone who is a benefit auction specialist. This is a credential, a designation that is given out by the National Auctioneers Association, and it distinguishes cattle or real estate or heavy equipment auctioneers from the people who work our fundraising auctions, our type of fundraising auctions. They tend to be a little bit easier to understand, and they tend to do most of their work before the event ever starts, understanding the psychology of your group and making connections with potential bidders out there. All right, I'm going to move on to the next department here, your paddle raise. This is generally incorporated during the live auction, so it happens inside that magic hour. This goes under a lot of different names. We call it a paddle raise. You can call it your special appeal, direct appeal, your direct ask. Fund a need is a very common name for these. This is where you are simply identifying a need for the school and asking people to make straight donations towards that. If you have not done a paddle raise, you need to add it to your event, period. They are the most important moment during the evening for fundraising. Silent auctions are fun, live auctions are fun, the wine wall is great, etc. Your paddle raise, this is your primary money maker here. It is generally either the most lucrative department in your auction or second, and you get it over with in about 5 or 6 minutes. Know that your guests are attending your event expecting to be asked for money. They know that that's part of the deal. I have spoken to auction chairs who sometimes say they don't want to do a special appeal because they don't really feel like asking their guests for money. And, you know, my answer is, you know, why are you throwing an auction? You know, the whole thing is that you're doing this as a fundraising event. You better be comfortable asking your guests for money, and you better be comfortable telling them why that would be a good investment for them, a good place for them to direct their philanthropy. Okay, so don't get in the way. Do a paddle raise. When you're going to initiate it, when it comes time for that in the auction, get to it quickly. I'm skipping around on my bullets a little bit here. The temptation is to play a video and have the principal speak and have, you know, the head of the booster club speak, etc., and have them go on and on for 3 or 4 minutes or 5 or 6 minutes telling you all of the reasons why people want to direct their philanthropic giving towards this moment. But realize your guests are anticipating this. They know you're going to ask them for money, and they know why they're there, and they know about your school. If they didn't believe in your school, they wouldn't have bought a ticket to come to the event. So, although you definitely want to set it up and you want to do a little bit of something to pluck their heartstrings, please, please, please limit it to 90 seconds and then get out of the way. You know, one person speaking, if somebody is going to speak, the very best way to let them speak is to videotape them ahead of time so that you can make sure that you get it down to 90 seconds and that it's controlled. If you have to hand a microphone to somebody, they become a bit of a wild card and can go on and on. And that's, you know, occasionally it's just something you have to deal with. You have to know how you're going to signal them to wrap it up so that you can get onto this. But get to it quickly. Next tip. Your auctioneer is going to start out high. They're going to ask for donations at a high dollar amount. Is there anyone in the room who is willing to contribute $10,000 tonight towards our school? And then they're going to move down in increments. So they may start at 10,000 and then go to 7,500, then go to 5,000, 2,500, 1,000. You may start out at 5,000. You may start out at 500. But the key is you want to know where you're going to start out. You want to know what that top end amount is. It needs to be guaranteed. It needs to be in the room. And you need to know who it is that's going to raise their paddle for that top amount. So you, as the auction chair, need to spend a little time, a couple of weeks before the event, calling your, the people that you suspect might lead the paddle raise and securing a guarantee from one of them as to where they would be willing to give. You got to know where that is and communicate that to your auctioneer. It'll run for about 6 minutes. Most paddle raises will raise restricted funds. That's because most paddle raises are most effective when you put a good concrete usage for the money in front of your donors. If you can say, we need to completely revamp the computer lab this year in the school, and then over the next 5 minutes, we're going to be asking you to make donations to help us accomplish this, then those are restricted funds, and you need to spend them revamping the computer lab. You may want to raise unrestricted funds in your paddle raise, in which case I would certainly understand and support you in that, but know that it's going to be a little more difficult to raise as much money. It's just simply the psychology of the event. Your donors are willing to contribute to concrete spending plans a little more generously. All right, moving on. Sign-up parties. We talked earlier about restricting your silent auction. One of the ways in which I get down to a count of 50 is that I don't even count my sign-up parties. These are fixed price items. They are fixed price experiences. The example I use quite often, because I donate this to every auction that I work on, is that I will throw a pig roast at my house every summer. And if you want to come over to my house here in lovely Portland, Oregon, I'm happy to sell you a slot at one of the auctions that I chair. It's $25 a head, or $35 a head, or $50 a head, and the date is set ahead of time, and you show up at my house, and we eat roast pig, and we have a great time. Sign-up parties are fantastic for schools particularly. Other organizations that run fundraising auctions, they're a little bit less of a natural, but in schools you've got a geographically connected community, and there's often a desire for community building events within them. So they are really one of my very favorite things to have at a fundraising auction. I would cut the silent auction before I would ever cut sign-up parties out of an event. And truthfully, I'm not going to cut either, but I love sign-up parties most of all. In addition to them being community builders, they also are fixed price items. I'm going to touch on this right now. We're going to get to it in a second here. This helps you make your event more inclusive. It helps you make it a more appealing event to people kind of regardless of their socioeconomic status or the budget that they bring into the event. So when you start putting this together, you want to plan out kind of where you're going to end up with regards to the slate of sign-up parties you've got. Understand the price points you've got. Have some cheap ones, have a $10 party, and then have some expensive ones, have a $100 party, and then have things kind of scattered throughout. You want to make sure that all the dates are set in advance, and you want to schedule them. You want to get it onto a calendar. Space them out so that if you've got 8 or 9 of these, you're not having all, 3 or 4 of them within a 1-week period sometime in the summer. You want to have some that are in the summer, some that are in the fall, some that are in the spring. Have some parties for men, some parties for women, some parties for families. There's a real value in having some sign-up parties that are year-over-year perennial events. They help you drive ticket sales to next year's auction. If you establish something like the pig roast at my house, which I donate to my Rotary Club auction, I'm selling tickets for this year's Rotary auction solely to people who want to go so that they can sign up for the pig roast at my house. It's actually a really great pig roast. And I know I've got somebody here from my neighborhood school. I'll make sure that you get a chance to sign up for that. But balance that also with some one-time things that change up your slate from year to year in your auction. And then know your count, plan your count for total slots. When I ask somebody to be my sign-up party procurement chair, I tell them that I want a slot or one spot available for every guest who's going to attend. So if I'm going to have 300 people there, I want all of my sign-up parties to add up to 300 slots. I don't mind having a lot of extra slots on the sign-up parties. There's not an issue like there is with the silent auction on these. People will buy, many of them, partly because they are fixed price. Last thing, post-event, you may have some leftover slots. Have a plan for how you are going to take care of those. If you happen to be using schoolauction.net, it's really easy to put them into an online auction and announce that as part of your cleanup later on. All right, moving on. We talked about the value of fixed price items in the context of sign-up parties. There's other types of fixed price items you can put in there. And this is, again, where we get back to making sure that every guest there has got ways to spend all of the money they are planning on spending. They may get priced out in the silent auction. They may get priced out in the live auction. Or there might not be necessarily things that appeal to them. You want them to have other ways to spend the money. You want to bulk up your fundraiser here. Raffle tickets are a classic. Wine wall, this is where you might procure 25 or 50 bottles of wine, put them in brown paper bags so that nobody can see what type of wine it is. Have an average value of, say, $12 for the bottles, but throw in one bottle that's worth $100 and sell each bottle, brown paper wrapped bottle for, say, $15 or $20 as a fixed price item. You know what you get, you never know until after you bought it. Lots of people like to buy wine, and wine walls are fun. Pick boards we went over earlier. Commemorative items could be things like a tote bag or an engraved wine glass or a beer glass that you can sell to your guests on the way out the door. All right. Once you have, that's our rundown of the list of departments there that you can have in your auction. Make your pick there for the ones that you want to include in yours, and then do your projections. Take a look at it. Oops, sorry. And we'll get back there. Take a look at your the departments that you've decided to have. Figure out how many items you're going to have in them, what your average sale is, and do projections that will help you get to a desired goal. This is a sample breakdown of what you would need to do in order to raise a little over $50,000 gross at a fundraising auction. Okay, you can see how I break it down here. Paddle raise has got an asterisk next to it because I want you to do an additional set of projections just for your paddle raise. If I want to get to $27,000 and I'm going to start at $5,000, here is a potential breakdown. You're doing this for a couple of reasons. The most important of which is that it's going to help you sleep at night in the weeks leading up to the auction if you understand exactly how you are planning on getting to your goal. You're going to be able to measure the number of things you have procured, so the number of sales in the silent and live auction, the number of slots you procured for your sign-up parties, the number of bottles for your wine walls. As you do your calling around to try to find your anchor bidder on the paddle raise, you'll have a feeling as to whether or not your projections are realistic or not. You can adjust them. The other thing is that this will help you set your goals for your sub-chairs, your captains, which I'm going to get to in just a second. We're transitioning to point number 2. We're going to make a staffing plan. Nobody does an auction by themselves. Actually, I'm pretty sure that somebody does, and that person is crazy. And that person is probably going to burn themselves out really, really fast. You will do much better as an auction chair if you've got a team of people working with you, and I'm going to tell you, make these specific jobs. Put together a job book for it. Use descriptions. Here's a breakdown of the people that I make sure are working with me on my auction. Chair and co-chair, somebody whose job it is just to sell tickets. I don't want to give them anything else to do. If they're going to help me sell tickets, I don't need them to help me procure items. I break up procurement into 3 sub-captains. I have somebody covering my greatest flaw as an auction chair, which is, I can handle the logistics, but I can't plan a party to save my life. So I have somebody in charge of theme and decorations and all of that fun stuff, somebody to run the desk at the event, and then usually you want to have somebody who is your primary user of the software who's going to become a ninja on that. Staffing job descriptions, by the way, are covered in our ebook, and I will tell you, you can download that from our website, from www.schoolauction.net. Give your volunteers their job description and give them goals. Tell them, here's what I would need you to do. When you do, you're creating a bounded job. It's not open-ended. It's not going to take forever. If it's a bounded job, if you tell them, I need you to do just this specific thing. I need you to procure 8 sign-up parties, total of 125 slots. It's much easier for someone to say yes to you. because that terror that they're going to get sucked into a never-ending job dissipates somewhat. You also want to give your chairs any data you've got from your software from past years. You know, what worked, what didn't. Pair that with it. Okay. I'm going to continue here. We'll cover this in some of the questions have asked about procurement and how you get the right items and what the right items are. You know, my key insight for you is going to be, don't ask me necessarily. Go out and ask your community. Ask the people who are going to be in the room themselves. The best thing you can do is to gather in some of your known big supporters and say to them, I need help figuring out what's going to be most appealing at our auction this year. You know, and you guys are some of the smartest people we have in the entire school community. Can you help me figure out what you think our guests are going to want to buy? What you're really saying to them, but I don't want you to phrase it this way, is, what do you want to buy, Mr. Big Spender? And you're going to try to get feedback from them about what it is that is appealing. You're also going to want to work with your community here to get volunteers and help you plan out the future of your event. You're going to want to get feedback, et cetera, from people, and not just the people who are the usual suspects, not just your super volunteers, not just your PTA presidents and super moms out there. Go talk to everybody else as well. Why didn't somebody come to the auction last year? What do you need in order for that to be an event that appeals across the community? Oftentimes the key is that your event has to be more inclusive. You're going to find at most schools that you've got some families that don't want to come because they don't think that they can spend enough to kind of keep up with the other people, or they think that it's really for, you know, those hyper-focused parents, and they feel a little left out. So here's some tips on inclusivity. This is something that's been a focus of mine for a couple of years. Auxiliary events like online auctions can help people participate. Offer up free tickets to your event for people who will volunteer. That's an easy one. You probably have already thought of that. But don't require people to work at your event in order to get their free ticket. Arrange for a volunteer swap with another school so that they can go work somebody else's event on a different night. And then when it's time for them to use their free ticket to your event, they can relax. They can have dinner. They can participate. They can bid. I'm happy to help our customers, our schoolauction.net customers, arrange for volunteer swaps. We've added mobile bidding to our software this year. Mobile bidding is a real trendy thing in the world of auctions right now. I am a little ambivalent about the total impact of mobile bidding, but one of the things I really love about it is that it does make for an excellent mechanism for proxy bidding. If somebody cannot be at the event but wants to bid on a particular item, and you think that allowing them to bid on that item from outside of the event is beneficial to you, you can set that item up for mobile bidding and then have people in the event and people who are outside of the event competing in real time for that item. Mobile bidding is lovely for that. And then fixed price items, we've already gone over that. They definitely help with the inclusivity. Moving on here, because I definitely want to leave time for questions. You're going to want to bring in technology for your event. Now, I've got some technology I'd love to sell you for your event. But even if you're not going to use my software, you know, bring in something to help your volunteers work more efficiently. Okay? The other great thing about technology, especially with things like online registration and, you know, being able to swipe and store your credit card at check-in, et cetera, is that it makes it easy for your guests to spend money. Next bullet point there on using your smartphones, just touched on mobile bidding a second ago. Mobile bidding is one way for people to use their smartphones at your event. Another way is to use them for check-in and check-out. That's built into our software. Even if you are not using mobile bidding, you can still use mobile checkout, which will get your guests out at the end of the evening in record time. It's really the single most effective way to optimize your checkout. But try not to be so exclusive. Not everybody's going to bring their smartphone. Not everybody's going to be as comfortable with it. If you're going to have smartphones be a key part of your auction, make sure that they are not the only way to spend money, or they're not the only way to check in and check out. They should be optional. And that way, people who are not as comfortable with them don't have to use them. All right, moving on. Let's see here. Plan for the future. This is as you are planning your event, document your decision making and all of the vendors that you've decided to engage, your auctioneer, your caterer, your software company, etc. Write things down. You want to come out of the event with a binder full of, fantastic tips and tricks that will make the next auction chair's job that much easier. Think about what you really wish somebody had handed you when you started the job and make sure that you've got that available for the next person. Do this, and it is a key piece of you being able to secure the services of somebody else to take over for you next year and build on top of, what you have been able to accomplish. All right, so that's my 5-step plan there. I am wrapping this at 11:42. We're going to have plenty of time for questions here. We did want to come back and reiterate on the plan. We have teamed up to make it a little more cost-effective for you to engage with Dimeline and schoolauction.net. If you decide that you are going to use our software and pay for a subscription, and you decide to use Dimeline as your processor, and this is hopefully for new customers, we're going to we'll tack 6 months onto your paid subscription there. And if you have yet to establish a trial of our software, here's the landing page I want you to use in order to make sure you qualify for that trial. If you're already in a trial right now and you think this is a good deal and you want to get that 6 months free tacked on, as soon as you have signed up for your subscription, let me know and I'll be happy to work with you on that. Okay, so now I think we can get into questions. David, you've got questions queued up there, is that right?
I do, and there's been a number of questions that have been asked during the webinar, and we'll try and get to all of these as well. So let's start it off with a few of the questions that were asked in the registration process. I know you've talked about some of these things, so if you have, just want to be thorough, make sure we get the question answered. So how about, let's start off with this. What's the ideal prep time for an auction?
Okay, so the ideal time, I'm going to say, is 6 to 8 months ahead of time. Not that you can't pull it off if you don't have that much time. Not that you can't make use of a full year if you've got a full year. But generally, I'm most comfortable when a customer signs up with us about 6 months before their event. That gives them plenty of time to get staffed, get those procurement letters out and back, and get ticket sales started. Ticket sales really won't kick in earnest until about 6 weeks prior to your auction. You can try to do early bird ticket sales a little early, but generally you're not going to get the bulk of them until then. You want to really have your ducks in a row and be set up to go at T-minus 6 weeks so that you can have a very effective ticket sales window. All right?
Great. So Roger, I know you talked a little bit about the ideal numbers at a silent auction, but number of items, that is. What about at a live auction?
12 to 15 is probably the right number, and it's based on that amount of time that you're going to need to sell each item and the total amount of time you've got to really capture people's money during there. So I'm fine with 12 to 15 at any auction that I am chairing. I've seen people do as many as 45. It kind of boggles the mind to think that anybody would sit through that, but it's out there. I'm generally okay at an auction if you can really only procure, say, 3 to 6 really good live auction items. Don't shy away from having a live auction just because you've only got 3 to 6. Go ahead and have it and see what you can get. But 12 to 15 is that number I would recommend.
Great. So Roger, can you explain what a golden ticket is?
A golden ticket is a special kind of raffle. The idea is that you pull this raffle and announce the winner just before you start the live auction, and the winner of the raffle gets to select any of the items that would otherwise be sold in the live auction. And so this needs to be a high ticket price on the golden ticket. It's usually $100, and you usually have a minimum number of tickets that you have to sell before you conduct the raffle. And you do this by working backwards from the fair market value of your highest value live auction item that you're going to include in it. So let's say that I've got one item in there that I know I can sell for $5,000. So it's the kindergarten class quilt. And there's some crazy dad out there that I know would pay $5,000 for it. And I know that boggles the mind, but it has been seen before. So I would make sure that I have sold, say, 50 tickets at $100 a ticket, and that covers $5,000. Did the math there, right? Yeah. And then, you know, I'm covered in case the golden ticket winner picks the kindergarten class quilt. I won't have necessarily lost anything. Happy to talk more about golden tickets. They are covered in the ebook.
Great. So Roger, I'm seeing a number of questions about the checkout process and the checkout experience, specifically the mobile checkout experience. Can you talk about how to optimize that process? And is the mobile checkout an extra feature with your solution?
It is included in our standard plus and premium subscriptions. It is so we try to make it as widely available as possible because we think it's really a dynamite way for you to fix one of the biggest stress areas in the event, which is checkout. How does it work? Okay, so the idea is that if you're going to optimize this, you work to optimize the item sales. I would make sure that I have 4 to 5 stations available to enter in the item sales data, and that I pull those sheets in a timely fashion and I get them back to the data entry people right away, because the key is you can't really initiate checkout until you've got all of the item sales entered into the software. But at that point in our software, the other thing you've got to do in order to make mobile checkout work is you really have to collect an email address for every guest. You have to have that as part of their ticket record. And it has to be their email, which they can pick up on their cell phone at the event. So do your hygiene on your tickets list and make sure that you've got good email addresses for each guest. And if you don't have them before the event, get them at check-in. That'll enable you, when it's time to initiate the checkout, you go into our software, it's a one-button click. You click the button to send the checkout invitation, take a quick eyeball on the list, click again to make it go, and then that sends an email blast out to all of your guests who have open orders, meaning they owe you some money for something they've done during the evening. Then you have your MC or your auctioneer announce to everybody that you're going to start checkout, but they don't have to get up out of their seats. They can just pull out their iPhone or their Android and check their email, and there'll be a link in there that they can click. And they do that, and it opens up their web browser and automatically logs them in and shows them what they have committed to purchase, and gives them a total at the bottom and an opportunity to add on an extra donation. The roundup feature is there. And then there's a big Pay Now button at the bottom of it. They hit that, and that charges their stored credit card. If they want to switch the credit card, they can. They just tap in the number of the card they want to use. When they're ready, they hit the Pay Now button, and it goes off, and the transaction goes through, and they get a receipt on their phone. Not every guest will do this. Let's say you've got 100 open orders, and you send this out. I would expect 75 of them to do it. But then you would be 75% checked out, probably within 5 minutes. And the other 25 guests who, for whatever reason, either they didn't bring their phone, or they want to go back and negotiate, or there was some mistake on their list, they'll come back and they'll deal with your volunteers at the back of the room. But now that's only 25% of the people that they would otherwise normally deal with during that time period, and they can get them dealt with relatively quickly, and you are up and out. The other key thing, if you're going to do mobile checkout, is make sure that you have your item pickup or area organized. So I like to have all of my items brought back to a particular room after the various closings in my event, have them organized by winning bid number. That way I'm ready. Somebody walks up, shows me the receipt on their phone that says they paid for it. I can grab a bag with their stuff in it, hand it to them, and they're out the door. I'm happy to do demos on this. I do demos every Thursday, and I definitely show this, and you can see it happen in person, on your own phone if you sign up for one of those demos. Just go ahead and email me after the webinar, and I will be happy to tell you how to attend one of those demos.
All right, thanks, Roger. So can you talk a little bit about procuring the best items, really the items that have the best return return on the investment, and particularly big ticket items such as trips and travel?
Okay. The thing about trips and travel is that they're very, very difficult to get donated. Okay, you can get, because those companies get hit constantly, and they've got good defenses, and they have good programs in place where they will make, a limited number of donations every year, and you kind of got to time it right in order to get to those. So I'm going to answer this a little bit differently. I'm going to give you what I think is the most usable advice, not necessarily how to make sure that you line it all up, et cetera, and get in there right on time. But the most usable advice is, A, experiences that you cannot otherwise purchase outside of the auction generally are going to be more appealing. If you've got a trip to, say a trip to Hawaii on your list. Now that's really appealing to me. I would love to go to Hawaii in the middle of winter here in Portland when it's all rainy and gray. But I also know that if I miss out on it at the auction, I know I can book a trip to Hawaii. I know about what it costs. And if I'm out there in the live auction and the bidding gets insane, I may say, you know what, I want to go to Hawaii, but I can handle it. I can do that myself outside of this. However, if there is some particular destination or somebody's vacation home that I know I can't otherwise book, my friends have this fabulous house on the coast here in Oregon, and they're offering a week at their house, and I've been out there before, and it's this amazing house, and I can't possibly rent anything like that otherwise, then, maybe I go a little over my head on that. Next thing is to say, as much as possible, utilize your community, not only to ask them if they've got something to donate, but know ahead of time what they want to buy. Again, I talked about this a little bit earlier. Gather your community together and do this brainstorming on the procurement so that you don't waste time and energy beating your head against the wall to procure a trip that you think sounds fantastic, but doesn't necessarily have appeal to the rest of your community. Because I'll tell you what's going to happen then. If it's a trip that you think is fantastic, you're the auction chair and you spend a lot of time procuring it, and nobody else thinks it's as fantastic as you do, guess what's going to happen? You're going to wind up buying it. And you're going to wind up buying it for, a face-saving price, which means you're probably going to spend a lot of money on it. And I see it happen all the time that the auction chair winds up being one of the top spenders at an auction. And, that's great. It's your auction, it's your kid's school, et cetera. But I would, when I'm a chair, I'm trying to figure out what other people are going to buy rather than just me. So there's some tips. This is a topic I could talk about much longer as well. I guess to answer the question generically, I would say if you want to get airlines or vacation resorts to donate, the first thing you got to do is know what their schedule is. When do those donations run out? When do they open them up for the year? Who is the right person? You may need to do work 1 or 2 years in advance in order to be able to time your request properly. Okay, let's go on.
Okay, so how does one identify donors that would donate much more if they were asked personally?
I love this question. The answer is they're breathing. In other words, everybody will donate more if you ask them personally. Okay? Every single potential donor will respond better to you if you come to them one-on-one. Okay? So just, the answer is every single one of them will. That said, some of them are also going to respond okay if you hit them with a letter. But truthfully, if I'm sending out my procurement team, I know direct mail letters are effective or are efficient. It's very easy to send 50 of them out, and it means I don't have to knock on a door, and it means I don't have to ask somebody face-to-face, and I really don't like doing that. I know all of that. The fact is, it's not as effective. I would rather have fewer items. I would rather set a goal for fewer items and have my people go out and ask, have my procurement team go out and ask for those items in person, because I think they're going to get better stuff. When it comes to your special appeal, which is the other place where we could interpret this question as going, who is going to raise their hand at a higher level if you just ask them? have your brainstorming meeting ahead of time. Make some calls. Spend a couple of weeks before the auction calling the usual suspects and saying to them, this is going to happen. We're going to hold this special appeal. I want to make sure that, I see that you bought a ticket. I want to make sure that you're going to be there. I want to see what level you think you're comfortable at donating. I'm really looking for an anchor donor. I was really hoping I could find somebody who would help us start the special appeal at $10,000. Do you think that might be you? Make those calls. Everybody will respond better to a personal appeal than they will to a letter or an email.
All right, so we have time for just a few more. So we have a question here. We seem to have the same contributors each year, and thus a lot of the same items each year. So I guess, Roger, what's the best way to keep an auction fresh year after year?
So keeping your auction fresh is generally less of a problem for schools than it is for other nonprofits, because schools get some turnover in the families that are there. But even in a school, it can be the same families, it seems like, for 4 or 5 years running. You need to be proactive and identify some families that you think you'd like to add to that usual suspects list. As the auctioneer, you need to be looking at your supporter base there, the number of potential people. And yeah, you know that the Smiths and the Joneses and the Franklins have always been key contributors at the auction, but the Marshes have not. Well, okay, so let's go talk to the Marshes. Maybe it's that nobody's invited them to the auction personally. Maybe it's nobody's asked them what they think should be at the auction. Maybe they think all the stuff you've got is boring. So ask them what it is that they think you could do to make your auction more interesting. You're not necessarily asking them what would make it more interesting to you. You're asking them for assistance in making the auction itself a better thing. Everybody loves being asked. It's flattering. I would love to hear your opinions is about the most inviting thing you can say to another person. Everybody loves to hear that. So I would reach out and talk to those people again. It's kind of in line with the last question. You just go out and you talk to these people and you ask them. Other things you can do to shake up an auction: themes. You can decide to shake up your mix of the departments that you offer. Maybe one year you want to go without a silent auction. Maybe one year you want to double down and do, extra sign-up parties, or you want to add a wine wall if you didn't have one, or take the wine wall away if you did and it wasn't working. Be data-driven, but also, look for some of these tried and true things that you may or may not have used as effectively in the past. Okay?
Okay, Roger, I'm going to do one more question, if that's all right.
Make it a good one.
What are the best ways to advertise an auction? And also, what are your thoughts on auction sponsors?
I love auction sponsors. Sponsorships are a really, really effective way for you to try to achieve one of my favorite goals for an auction, which is by the time the event opens at, say, 5:30 on Saturday night, I would like for all of my hard expenses to have been paid for through sponsorships and ticket sales, so that every dollar we raise during the event goes to the mission, goes to the school, goes to the cause, whatever it is. So I'm deeply in favor of sponsorships. And again, this goes to the ask and you shall receive idea that we've been batting around for the last few minutes here. Get out there. There are going to be some families that may not attend your event, but may have a business that they can leverage to sponsor your event. Be ready to have those available. Best way to promote your event? Well, depends on who your organization is and what you've got. I will say that schools do have some built-in opportunities to promote in person. Generally, if you've got parent group meetings, PTA meetings, that kind of thing, booster clubs, I would always try to get time in those meetings to talk to the people that are there, utilize school newsletters, etc. If it's something that's not a school, like I keep talking about my Rotary Club auction, every week, leading up to the event, starting about 3 months beforehand, I stand up in a meeting and I talk about the progress of what's going on. Try to make these personal connections with the people that you want to have there. It It can be tempting to say, let's print a poster and let's send out an email blast. And those are all great supplementary things to do, and they can work as well. But nothing works better than asking people, talking to people. So have a ground game as part of your promotional plan. Have, some people, this is why I say make the ticket sales captain a specific job. Have somebody whose job it is really just to call people to say, I want to make sure that you're coming to the event. We really would like to see you there. Can I help you do that? So, a lot of it comes down again to ask, talk to people, get them there. I will say that mass advertising for your auctions is something that I see some of our customers do, and I understand why they would do it. Try to put up posters around town or take out a newspaper advertisement. Fundraising auctions, though, require the people that you want to have in the room have got a strong personal connection to your organization and your mission. And so generally, you kind of know who they are. So I'm going to tell you the best way to get them in the room is to ask them, is to reach out and ask them. Okay, I think we've hit 12 o'clock.
I think we have. Thank you so much, and we are out of time. So we will be sending out an email with the recording of the webinar. I know a few of you have asked if you could get a copy of the slides, so that should go out about tomorrow morning or so. And please send it to any of you, your colleagues who have missed it or be interested in seeing this. We will also be sending the link that you see here on the screen for the 2-week trial, so you can take advantage of the 6-month promotion. If you are already a schoolauction.net customer and you would like more information on Dimeline, you can visit us at dimelineinc.com, and we encourage everyone to do so. If we didn't get a chance to answer your question today, we apologize, and we will make sure that someone follows up with you. I know Roger and schoolauction.net have a ton of educational content on their website. We use it all the time, and that can be useful as well. So we're thrilled that everyone is excited about auctions. We are too. Roger, I'd like to thank you again for being with us today. That was fantastic. Did I miss anything?
Thanks for the opportunity. No, thank you for the opportunity. And contact information for all of us will be in your outgoing email, right?
Absolutely, yep.
Fantastic. Well, I would then encourage everybody to reach out to me. I'm here, happy to answer your questions.
All right, thank you everyone so much for attending, and we look forward to talking to everyone again very soon. Thanks a lot.
Bye, David.